Welcome to Knox Community Schools podcast, telling our story. Hello, Knox community, and welcome back to another podcast, telling our story. The goal of this is to be intentional about the great things that our staff members are doing every day to impact our students and community in a positive way. A couple upcoming events that we have. A reminder, Thanksgiving break is coming up. That is November 27th through the 29th. We do have Wednesday off before Thanksgiving, so everyone is aware of that. And I know athletic-wise, all winter sports are up and running, so you can get those schedules out for our athletic events. Very excited to have Mrs. Hahn with us here today. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And what are we talking about today?
Well, we're going to talk about the play and, the drama department here at Knox, I think. So
Absolutely. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, yes. Right? The play occurred over the weekend.
It did.
We had two shows, one Saturday and one on Sunday.
Yes. We had great turnouts, too.
Great turnouts. Kids did a fantastic job. So we'll get to that here in a second. First, a little bit about you. You grew up in Frankton, Indiana, which is near Anderson and Muncie. You have 4 younger siblings. In high school, you were in band and choir, and was part of 2 musicals. You were a little shy at the time.
People find that very hard to believe, but yes.
You're a little shy at the time to try out for the plays. Your mom was an elementary teacher, so that's where you get your teaching bones from. And your father was a tool and die maker for GM. Mm-hmm. Both your parents were avid readers and loved music. We were in Book of the Month clubs when we were younger, took music lessons, and participated in band in high school. We also travel a lot around the United States and camped at the Indiana State Parks. So quick question, what's your favorite place to camp? Yeah.
I always, as far as the state parks, I loved Spring Mill, Indiana. I don't know if you've ever been down there, but you know what? I just camped myself a few weeks ago down at Tippecanoe River, and that was a great place to camp too.
I do. I really enjoy camping. Yeah. It's kind of our family getaway. You put the phones away and just enjoy the family life. So I can absolutely relate to that. So tell us a little bit about your educational journey to this point.
Well, as you said, my mother was an elementary teacher. There were some other teachers in the family. And when I was a sophomore in high school, my high school math teacher encouraged me to go into teaching. I was going to be a math teacher, but then I got tired of math and I did well in English too. And I had a really fantastic senior English teacher. And so that's what I decided to do. So I went to Ball State. I got my English degree for high school and then with a middle school endorsement. So I graduated in the middle of the year. But also during my student teaching, I got to help direct a play. And I'd always loved theater. And so when I ended up subbing for another year, and then I was taking classes at Ball State because I was close, and added the theater and speech to my endorsement, which helped me get my job at Knox. And so I started working here back in August of 1987. I did do the speech team first for a few years, and then the drama director left. And so I took over the plays in 1990 and the musicals in 1997.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love talking to educators because they always have a story of that one person.
Yeah.
That this is the reason why I got into education. Mm-hmm. Just briefly, 20 seconds, talk about that one person for you.
Well, he was a fascinating person. His name was Ned Burke, and he was a World War II veteran because, I'm kind of old now. But he taught math and he taught physics. He was also my physics teacher in high school. And he was just this wonderful person with so many different experiences and was really inspiring. And he just, he knew how to just keep living life. And he was great. And, he told me there was a shortage of math teachers, but, I didn't end up going that direction. But,
and that's part of teaching is building that positive relationship with your kids. It's been going on for years.
Yes.
So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So let's get into Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, right? Give us a little just background, like why did you choose that one? Give us a little history here.
So I've been doing this a long time. Yeah. And when you're doing this at a high school level, you have to think about who you have available that you are pretty sure are going to do the show. You don't want to cast the show in your mind, but you need to understand, who do I think can we do this? And I have a lot of really talented kids right now. So I was trying to find something that had a lot of different good parts, interesting parts, and I'd narrowed it down to a couple of shows. Willy Wonka was one of them. The other one was the old Get Smart. I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but there's a stage production of that.
Gotcha.
So I decided, well, I'm just going to let the kids decide, because I've done that once in a while. Usually I choose it myself, but once in a while I let them choose, and they chose Willy Wonka, and I thought it's a great fit for us this year. It worked out very well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I have some experience, of the plays, and I am always amazed at the kids who can learn all of these lines. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it. I'm going, how do you memorize all of this? Talk about the time that our students have to put into it.
Well, so we have rehearsals for a play. We do about a 6 or 7 week rehearsal time.
Okay.
For a musical, it's usually maybe 8 to 9 weeks. Sometimes we've done it shorter. But the play, we'll spend 8 to 12 hours of rehearsal time a week for those 6 weeks. But outside of that time, that's when we're together. But they have to work on those lines outside of our rehearsal time, because most of them are not going to have that magical ability just to retain it. I've had some students that did, but a lot of them, you just have to go over it. So they've got commitment time. I mean, they're carrying their scripts with them in class. And if they're finished with their work, a lot of them are like, okay, and SRT time and study hall time. And they have to put a lot of work into it to really get all those lines down. And it helps when they really are enjoying their part. And these kids did. They loved their parts. They were so dedicated, and they were wonderful to work with. And once we got to that final week, I wasn't worried about the lines, and it went smoothly. I just got to kind of sit back during the performances and just supervise backstage, and they did it. And it was great, but they spend so much time.
That was one of my questions for you, like leading up to the week before the performance, right? And it was awesome to have the Judson first graders over, to watch. But like any other extracurricular, right? We talked to Mr. Phipps last week about the time that the band puts in, and we talked about our athletic teams, times that they put in. Your kids do the exact same thing. Leading up to that performance over the weekend, were you kind of like, oh boy, I hope this comes together? Or were you like, oh, we got it?
It's always the first, because there's always something. Like this show had, the kids had to memorize all those lines and create their characters, but we had tons of these small little prop pieces that we were putting together. That was my biggest worry this year. Yeah, because we were still working on some pieces Friday morning before we performed for Knox's kindergarten and first grade.
Yeah.
So that was my big concern, that we weren't going to get everything in the right place. But then that stage crew did an awesome job too. I mean, they'd been back there painting and constructing, and we found that one student, he was great at building things out of cardboard, and it made a TV for us, and it was. So there's a lot of different, that's one of the things I love about the theater is there's so many different areas, that we can cover in that. So.
And it's our students,
Yes, it is. It is.
They're doing these amazing things every day, and people don't always, quote unquote, see behind the scenes.
Correct. Yes.
Right. Of what's going on.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about some of our students that were in the play. They were amazing. Turnout was great.
Yeah.
Give them a little kudos and give us a little background.
Well, the title role was played by Nora Turner. She's a sophomore. She's great. And Charlie was the one character in the show that wasn't so like crazy or the spoiled brat or something like that. She was the straight man and played it with such sincerity and just perfectly how we wanted it to be. And she's a really good performer. This was she's a sophomore, but this was her 4th show, I think, because she did a couple of the musicals in 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. Who else do we have there?
Well, we also had another sophomore, Brady Matizak. He's a great character actor. He played Grandpa Joe. And then Lane Mock, our senior, he was awesome as Willy Wonka. But all of those, like Evan Blankenship, he's a freshman. He played the Augustus Gloop character. And the kindergartners and first graders from Knox Friday morning just laughed their heads off at him. And then Violet Beauregard was played by Sini King. She's a junior. She just fit right into that role. And we had another senior playing Veruca Salt, Aislinn McManaway. Mm-hmm. She's really talented. Watch her in the musical this spring because she's a great singer too.
Awesome.
And I'm sure she'll be playing a big part. And then the other of the children was Will Corey. He played Mike TV, the bratty kid, but they're high school kids playing a little bit younger, but still, they were terrific. They just all got right into their roles and did a great job.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Kudos to you,
Thank you
for your leadership of this play, for the kids, whether you were performing or behind the scenes, it came together really well. So thank you for all of your work.
Well, thank you.
And definitely appreciate that. Let's go back to you for a moment. You've been teaching for how many years?
This is year 38.
You're 38.
Yes.
So is the word retirement coming?
Yes. Yes. Yes, it is. Yes. Yes. I think I told you that at the very beginning of the year. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So talk to us a little, what are your plans? First of all, before you answer that, I want to tell you thank you for all your years of service.
Oh, thank you.
Right? We definitely appreciate that. We can see the impact that you've made on our kids. So thank you for all those years and be dedicated to Knox. But once you retire, what do you want to do?
Well, I'd like to be a little more free to travel when I want to. One of the trips I already have planned is with my dad. We lost my mother 2 years ago, but Dad's he's 84, but he's still in really good health. And he's never been to Maine and up through that area. And I've been there once and want to go back. So that's what we're going to do first, I think, in the fall. And then I have sisters and nieces and nephews all over the place. And I'd like to be able to spend a little more time with them and travel and visit them. So,
that is awesome.
And I love to read and theater and, so.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, again, thank you. And, best of luck on your retirement. Not allowed to retire until after the school year.
I know. Yes. Still have one more show to do. So.
There you go. Well, we're excited. Can you give us a little foreshadowing of the show or not yet?
Well, we're looking at a couple of ideas. Okay. One of them we're considering is The Prince of Egypt, based off the animated musical from about 20 years ago. That's a stage production and available now. It's got beautiful music, but I'm meeting with Mr. Garcia, Mr. Phipps, Allison Martinkus, our choreographer. I want us all to watch it, the whole thing, before we decide, but that's one of the possibilities. Awesome. So, well, you heard it first here on the Knox Community Podcast. We got a little breakdown for the springtime. Ms. Hahn, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for asking me. Absolutely. It was a blast. And to our listeners, thank you for listening through the podcast. Our goal is to do one podcast each week, highlighting the amazing things that's going on here at Knox Community School Corporation. Thank you for listening to Knox Community Schools Podcast, Telling Our Story.